Hello, welcome to the Gothic Bohemian Salon. I've invited my friend Max here to talk about a subject that's near and dear to his black little heart, and that would be the collection, display, and research into Victorian mourning jewelry and ephemera. So tell me, Max, when did you first become interested in Victorian mourning paraphernalia?
I've always had somewhat of a macabre sense, and the funeral industry has always interested me, and so I always wondered the history of that, and I have done a little research, and the Victorian mourning process really fascinated me because so much energy, time, and money was put into it by not only the Queen, but then trickling down through the middle class, and just the immense amount of detail, and that one had to live up to maintain their social status was really fascinating to me.
And you're talking about people conforming to the stages of mourning and things like that?
Yes, that's what I am talking about. And what came out of it, the jewelry and the different, the written or slash unwritten rules that mainly women had to follow.
Yeah, because it was a lot easier for men.
It was a lot easier for men. Men
just slapped on an armband.
And that was it. Whereas women, it depended on how close your family member was. If it was a family member, the stages of mourning that you had to go through, the duration of time that you had to spend in mourning, when you could leave the house, what you could wear.
Yeah, and women were often in mourning for most of their lives.
Yes. And I mean, if they lost a husband, they sometimes could not leave the house for up to a year, or be seen outside of the house for up to a year.
And then they had to wear all that heavy black crepe and the veil covering the face.
Yes, even inside. And you weren't allowed to wear any sort of color until second stage mourning, which you were only permitted a little bit of a specific type of lilac, purple, which I just find very fascinating.
Wasn't you were also allowed to wear at that point a little bit of white?
Yes.
Or wasn't white actually part of first stage mourning?
Well, it depended on if you lost how old the family member was. If they were considered a virgin, if they were a child, or if they hadn't married yet, or a teenager, you had to wear white. And you often see on the paper ephemera, the cards, they were white, and that's if it was a child or someone who was not married, younger.
So hang on a second. Okay, this I'm wondering about. You're not saying that when if a woman lost a child, let's say, she didn't mourn in white for the child.
No, she didn't. She didn't necessarily mourn in white, but white was.
But all the stuff for the child was white, like the coffin was white, and the flowers were white.
And the flowers were white, and the ephemera. But I mean, she would.
The widow or the mother wouldn't be wearing white.
No, but the children would. If they had siblings, they would be wearing white. White with a sash of black usually, or black striping.
And then the mutes would wear white sashes as well.
Yeah, and they would have
white crepe on their hats.
On their hat and on their staff.
Did they make white crepe?
I believe they did.
I don't remember whether they made white. I actually haven't heard of white crepe. We'll have to look into that.
We'll have to look it up.
Well,
I wouldn't put it past them though.
Yeah, really. Black crepe is notoriously difficult to find. Do you know why that is, Max?
Well, all mourning jewelry was difficult to find until the advent of the internet.
Not the jewelry. I'm talking about
but the crepe itself, well, it breaks down, of course, and anything related to mourning, if it wasn't commemorative, was considered bad luck. So you had to take it out of your house. The Victorians were very suspicious, and crepe breaks down very easily, and there's accounts of women who wore the veils inhaling it and coughing up black like soot. You
Kind of
know,
like going to the Renaissance Pleasure Fair sometimes.
when it's dirty. It does.
Well, that is outdoors, and I'll tell you that you do cough up some nasty
Yeah.
black stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty nasty.
Yeah. So that, I mean, not a lot of it. It becomes very brittle, and it breaks down very easily. So not
Right.
a lot of it really
So,
survives.
so this is why you want to be really, really careful if you decide to collect mourning, that if you buy clothing of any kind, or hats or veils or anything like that, that you really make sure it actually is mourning. Probably the easiest thing clothing-wise to find would be handkerchiefs with black edging on them,
Yeah.
or black embroidery, because that's something that you might still carry around
Yeah,
after
exactly.
when you weren't in mourning. So those you can find, but
Or
actual
commemorative mourning jewelry, which oftentimes people wouldn't get rid of because it would have the hair of the loved one in it.
Well, I'm not talking about jewelry right now at all. I'm still talking
clothing?
about clothing.
Okay.
Yeah, we're kind of stuck on the clothing at the moment. But as far as jewelry goes, since you brought it up, how can you tell a piece of mourning jewelry from just a piece of sentimental jewelry?
Well, the easiest way to tell is often the use of seed pearls. Seed pearls evoke tears. That's what they mean. They symbolize tears.
Right?
And also botany. The Victorians were all about botany, and they tell a specific
The
story.
meanings of flowers.
Flowers, yeah.
Plants.
And so if you know how to recognize those flowers and the different meanings in, you find a lot of matte black. Usually if you find polished onyx, it's usually second stage mourning, if at all. But the seed pearls are the easiest way of identifying if a piece is mourning.
Dull,
matte.
matte things like you'll see gentlemen's watch fobs made out of jet. That's quite dull. Or vulcanite is pretty dull.
Vulcanite was a cheaper version of jet. Jet is fossilized coal or fossilized wood that was carved. Whitby, it came from Whitby, England, and it was very expensive. So people made the mourning industry put out cheaper options, like vulcanite for one, which is pressed rubber.
Pressed rubber, yeah.
Basically. It's what pipe stems are made out of.
Yeah, and vulcanite is actually really easy to mold. So you can kind of tell that something's vulcanite if the design is really elaborate and detailed, because you can't carve some of the things
Jet.
that you see. You can't carve jet that well or that easily, that elaborately. So, but you can press it into a mold. So generally,
you can press Whitby jet, or I mean vulcanite.
Into a mold, right? So if you find a locket, for example, that's black and dull and has something affixed to the front of it rather than a whole piece, and then the inside will usually have a very detailed kind of swirly pattern on both sides of the locket. That's always vulcanite, which is the pressed,
ergo mourning,
pressed rubber.
usually.
And that's generally mourning. It's the matte black that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then some of the plants are ivy, weeping willows, holly, roses, lily of the valley, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think pansies.
Yeah, there's a book, I forget what I think it's called the Language of Victorian Flowers or something.
There
like
are
that.
a few books like that.
A few
actually.
books, yeah, where you can actually refer to what the piece of mourning jewelry and other pieces of jewelry signified, because there's a whole language, for example.
There's language of flowers, yeah. For example,
I think if a wife was mourning the death of her husband, you oftentimes see a rose, I think, used in the
oh yeah, I think
in the jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then you find hair jewelry, and oftentimes people think that just because the jewelry has hair in it, that it's mourning.
That it's mourning.
That is a very common misconception.
That's a huge misconception, which we're going to set to rights right now.
Yes.
Basically, hair work was mostly done as a memento, a token of love or sympathy or not sympathy, a token of love or friendship. And those things were either made by individuals who bought books that showed you how to do it at home.
Actually send people's hair off.
Yeah, or you'd send the hair away to special factories where it was made into various things like watch chains and bracelets. Sometimes really complex and beautiful things.
And rings as well.
Earrings, rings. The best indication if something's hair would be dull fittings on it, or if it's in combination with some of the other things we were talking about, with the ivy motifs or with the seed pearls, with the dullness of the dull vulcanite types or Whitby jet type thing. Oh, and speaking of jet, there's also a thing called French jet,
which is just black glass.
Yes, people kind of say French jet as if it's this really special, amazing thing, and it's glass. Yeah,
okay.
It is just glass. The other thing to keep in mind is that the minute somebody can put stamp mourning on something, as
value goes up.
Well, right. So, or they assume that the value goes up anyway. So, that's something that people do quite frequently to jack up the value of their stuff, and they sometimes just don't really know enough to know
or
what
they just want a better price for it.
Yeah. Well, usually people just are ignorant, of what they have.
They're just ignorant.
Well, it's true. They usually just don't know, or they're assuming, or they're hoping that it is. Not everybody does their research. Vintage places or whatever. So you just have to be educated yourself, and just be really careful about how much you spend and what you buy, and kind of watch. Like, I would watch eBay for a while. I would watch auctions happen and end and not bid on anything, while you kind of see how things go, what sort of prices people get for stuff, whether stuff sells at all, and then kind of
gauge it.
Yeah, gauge it accordingly. And there's a few places where hang on a second. There's a few places that sell mourning jewelry and other ephemera, or an ephemera. There's a place in San Francisco in the Haight-Ashbury called Love to Death, which sells both taxidermy, bones, and apparently Victorian mourning.
And obscura medical equipment. It's just a wonderful place.
All kinds of stuff like that. But of course, the prices are quite high, in a shop like that. There's also another shop in Los Angeles on Melrose called Necromance.
Very great shop.
And it's a great shop to visit and look at all the great things.
Pickled specimens. Surgical equipment, poison bottles.
They had some really nice nail guards in there. One of the times that I went into.
Yeah,
Chinese nail guards, which I'll wear one of these days on the video so you can see them. I know a lot of you like these things, so I'm assuming that those would interest you as well. So I'll put those on and let you know where to find those. But
and we'll give you examples of this mourning jewelry or non-mourning jewelry in a part 2.
A further video, absolutely. So, I guess that was really mostly what I wanted to talk about. Max, can you think of anything to wrap it up?
Just to recap on what you were saying, eBay is a wonderful resource, because before eBay, mourning jewelry was much more expensive because it's hard to find.
Yes.
But you just have to please, if you're interested in collecting mourning jewelry, do your research and watch eBay and get the best price. If you don't splurge on something, you know, right then and there. You want to go and watch the price of things and see what things are going for and get the best deal possible.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing to do is to look at already finished listings, which
Yes.
you can do in the search engines. If you just look at, you know, there's various little things to choose as far as what your view is, and one of them is to look at closed listings or ended. I don't remember how they put it, but listings that have ended already, and that's really useful to look at to know whether things have sold at all, or what they sold for, or, you know, how long it took before people started bidding and that kind of thing. The other thing I'm going to recommend to you is that you use Auction Sniper,
Yeah.
which is a wonderful resource for anybody who wants to bid. I think it can be used in other bidding sites as well, but it is directly connected to eBay.
It bids for you.
It bids for you. You can get a button that's a Snipe It Now button, so that as you're going through eBay listings, you can just press this little button on your toolbar, and it will bring up a little box that has the item that you're looking at in it, and you can put in how much you want to bid, when that bid should take place,
How close to the end.
how close to the end. You can put in how many bid increments you're willing to go up if it should get to your highest price.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you can do that's really great is you can do a thing called a bid group, which is where you create a folder that has several of the same thing or even different things in it. And Auction Sniper will bid until it wins something from that group,
yeah.
or two somethings or three somethings. You can tell it to you know, buy as many as you like. And if you only have, you know, a certain amount of money to spend, and you see like 5 different things, you know, it'll just basically, you know, bid on it until you win one, and will only bid up to your maximum amount, which is really great.
Good resource. It's
And
really great.
it stops auctions from getting inflated.
Yeah.
You know, the prices going up really high, really fast. So I think it's a really great way to go. Actually,
And it's pretty cheap, isn't it?
it's very cheap.
Isn't it like 10 cents a bid or something?
It's a tiny percentage of the winning bid, I believe, but it's like $2 or $3 a month, so it's very affordable. And if you refer people, you get free snipes, so that is a great way to get not have to pay for it too.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's our best advice
Overview.
and overview of Victorian mourning. We've mostly talked about jewelry and clothing. We'll talk about ephemera another time, and we'll definitely show you examples
Of course.
of what we're talking
In
about.
part 2, part 3, part 4, how many parts we want to make.
How many parts you want to see.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Max, for joining me tonight.
Why, thank you for having me in the Bohemian Gothic Salon. We are wearing our smoking attire. We have just finished smoking. And that's an overview on mourning.
You had to get
In the
that in,
Victorian
didn't
era.
you? You wanted to point that out. Max is sartorially in excellent form tonight, I must say. So we do love this. Don't you all wish that you look like that? Of course. Okay, thank you very much, and good night from the Gothic Bohemian Salon.
Au revoir.